So in the first part of this video on doing transactional research, we talked about finding company information, public company information, using SEC filings. Now we're going to review a little bit about finding model forms. So these are my tips about finding model forms. If you work at a large size firm or a medium sized firm, you probably have a firm content management system where people have dumped all of their forms that they've used in prior transactions. So that would be a really good place to start. And if there's lots of merger forms, you might even want to ask the partner or senior associate that you're working with if they have a form that they particularly like to use. If you don't have a content management system, or you don't have something that you think is sufficient, or if there are clauses in those documents that you maybe don't understand, you want to know more about, the next thing to look for is annotated forms. So this is one of the reasons we like Practical Law Company, is because they have those notes, which is a form of annotations, but there are other sources as well that have annotated forms. So that way we get just not just the contract language itself, but also why the language is the way it is, if there are compliance issues, so if it's put there because of something in the federal SEC law, or if it's a Delaware company, if you're putting something into a contract particularly because of Delaware law. It can include notes about negotiating tips. So those are the things that are to our advantage if we have an annotated form. So we're going to look at a couple of databases that have model forms. Then the other place that we can find forms is, well, we just looked at SEC filings, and I told you that they have to file all of their important documents as exhibits to their SEC filings. So there could be also a treasure trove of already drafted documents in those public company SEC filings. And as a matter of fact, on Lexis and on Bloomberg, they're actually pulling those model documents from SEC filings. So we can take a quick look at that as well. Okay, so here's some sources for model forms. The Lexis.com Transactional Advisor, which we haven't looked at yet. We'll take a quick look at that. Practical Law Company, you've already requested your login for this class, so you already have that, and we've looked at that, and it's a great source for model forms because it has annotations. Knowledge Mosaic, which we just used for our exercise on pulling SEC filings, also has some model forms which are based on SEC filings. And Bloomberg Law, which I know you're all registered for, also has model forms. So this is LexisNexis Transactional Advisor, and there are various practice areas, but if you're in an M&A practice and you want to look at M&A forms, obviously that's the practice center you want to be in. So there's a couple of different ways to get into this. Let's go out to Lexis.com and I'll show you how to get into this advisor. So I'm on Lexis.com, and as I was showing you in the slideshow, you can link in over here on the right. If you don't see this box here, you can also go under More and go Lexis Transactional Advisor. And the one that we're most focused on is mergers and acquisitions. And the great thing about how they have it set up here is that they have it set up as you would go through the deal. So they have news, so that's current awareness, how you would structure the deal, how you would do due diligence, actually drafting the documents, a part on negotiation, closing and executing, and then how you would have to go about filing it for public companies. So basically they've broken it down into the timeline of the deal. So let's look under Create Documents. And there's a couple of different, there's actually a lot of different databases here, some of which we don't have access to under our academic subscription, but if you look, you can get a sense of what might be included and what you might see at work. And you can see some of the precedent agreements they're pulling right from the SEC. Okay. They also have sample M&A agreements that are from a Matthew Bender publication. And then over here, they have other form documents, such as the M&A Practice Guide. So this is a really good guide. Let's just take a quick look at this. And it's nice on Lexis.com Com is that you can look at the table of contents and you can see what's included in this source. So if you were at the if you were doing representations and warranties and you were asked to draft a particular representation or warranty, you could look and see what's included in terms of say you wanted to know about knowledge qualifiers. You could click into the source. It tells you generally what they are and then how you would go about defining them, and some of these actually give you example clauses. So in addition to the M&A Practice Center, which we looked at, they also have securities, corporate law, and other areas of law. So you might be interested in looking at this even if you're not going to be a corporate associate. And as I think I mentioned in the last part of the slideshow, Lexis.com has developed, LexisNexis rather, has developed this product on the Lexis Advanced platform. It's something we don't have access to yet here at the law school. So Practical Law Company, we've talked about this source before and we've run some searches on it. This source is also really good because we have model forms with notes on them. Let's take a quick look at Bloomberg Law and look at some of their model form documents. Okay, so we're back on Bloomberg Law and we're going to use that transactional law tab. There's a lot of really good information here. The first place I would go would be under Resources, Drafting Guides, and Overviews. I really like this because it's guide, so it's explaining to you how to go about drafting these things that you maybe haven't drafted before. And there's checklists and timelines. So if you're doing an M&A due diligence, which is very typical first year, second year corporate task, you can get a sense of the timeline and what's involved and what types of information you're going to need to look at. In terms of documents, this here, these are the clauses. So the different clauses that you have in lots of different documents, including, we were just talking about representations and warranties. So for example, if you wanted to know what the representation that the agreement is legal, valid, and binding, what that's all about, you can click on that and it tells you what the purpose of the clause is and what typical exceptions to the clause might be. The other tool that I like in this drafting area is document description. So if someone does say to you, oh, you need to draft a bear hug letter, you can click in here, you can find it, and it gives you a little introduction to what that is. Key sections, considerations for the target company, all the sort of background information you would need before you even started drafting. So that was transactional law, drafting guidelines and overviews. There's also treatises here and other resources. Another thing they have that's really nice is dealmaker documents and clauses. Let's just take a quick look at the dealmaker documents. So you used your secondary sources, you read about what a bear hug letter is, you found out what kind of provisions it should have. Now you want to take a look at a couple of them. So you can go to this dealmaker documents. You can click on, I actually already clicked on it already, but bear hug letters. And then you can just run a search. You can also put in a governing law if you want to. But this will give you an example, if you click on them, of bear hug letters that are actually, so you can see where they're pulling this from. They pulled this from a Form 8K, an SEC public company filing. And they're saying, oh, here, we've pulled these from the SEC, we've put them in by category, and you can look at them in terms of what a bear hug letter looked like in this particular deal. Okay, so this is lower down the list. The first thing on the list was what's at your own firm in their files that they like to use. Second thing is forms that are annotated so we understand what the provisions are. And the third thing is unannotated forms that we can use as samples. And on Bloomberg Law, again, I mentioned to you that we're going to be using this transactional law tab a lot, or you can get into this material under Practice Center's corporate M&A as well. I think that it's a little cleaner under transactional law, but this is also a good way to get in. Okay, so that was a little bit of information about finding sample forms on Bloomberg Law. So we actually sort of just went through this research challenge. We needed to draft a bear hug letter, and we found out how to do it on Bloomberg Law. I just showed you that, so you maybe can review that. The second thing that we're going to do is find a sample letter of intent or a term sheet. And we've done this already, something similar to this on Practical Law Company. So let's do it on Lexis.com. Okay, so again, I'm doing this on Lexis.com, and you can go in under More, Transactional Advisor, and then we want to be in the M&A topic area, although you can see there's a lot of other topic areas that could be of interest depending on what you're working on. And we actually want to draft a document, so let's go create documents. And I'm going to use this M&A practice guide. And we're going to do term sheet or letter of intent. And you can see we have an analysis section. And if we open that up, it's going to talk about what the purpose of the advantages and disadvantages of having a letter of intent, what the contents might be, and some court cases that talked about letters of intent. When is it binding? When is it not binding? And then if we do book browse and we look at the next section, this is actually different. Oh, this is engagement letters. Hold on. I'm just going to go out to the table of contents. So, okay, we want to be in Practice Resources, Section 508. And this is giving us where we could go to find some sample letters of intent, including a clickable link here to Warren's forms. Okay, so we looked at a couple of different resources. We've already looked at forms a little bit in this class, but now we've looked at Practical Law Company, we've looked at forms on Bloomberg Law, and we've looked at forms on Lexis. There are other places you could go to find forms, including on Westlaw and on Knowledge Mosaic and other databases. But since we have a limited time, we've looked at a few sources here. I hope this is enough to get you started.